The sky above Zurellen 5 was a deep shade of orange, dust swirling in the dry wind. The planet was known for its harsh weather and rocky landscape. But now, the sound of explosions and laser fire filled the air. The war between the Cathari Alliance and the enemy drones had reached its fiercest point yet. Elira, a young Cathari scout, moved quickly across the cracked ground. Her blue skin shimmered under the fading sun, and her armor was scratched and worn. She was one of the best in her squad, known for her sharp mind and fast reflexes. Today, however, everything felt different. The enemy was stronger and her team was fewer. "Stay close," she ordered softly, her voice steady despite the chaos. Behind her, the other scouts followed, their footsteps light but heavy with fear. They had been sent to find the enemy's base and gather information, but they had walked into a trap. Suddenly, from the rocky ridge, enemy drones appeared. They were small, fast, and armed with powerful weapons. The scouts scattered, trying to hide behind boulders and broken walls. Elira fired her pulse rifle, hitting one drone in the air, but more kept coming. A sharp explosion struck near her. The ground shook, and a wave of heat washed over her. She fell to her knees, her vision blurring. Pain spread through her side. She tried to stand, but her body would not obey. "Fall back," she whispered, trying to warn her team, but her voice was barely heard over the battle. One by one, her squad disappeared. Some ran, some hid, but many were caught by the enemy. Elira felt her strength leaving her. Her breath came in short gasps. She looked up at the sky and thought of her home planet. The green forests, the clear lakes, the quiet nights. Is this the end? She wondered silently. She closed her eyes, letting the darkness come. Her last thought was full of regret. "I never saw peace. I never finished my mission. I never got to say goodbye, but the darkness did not stay." A soft, warm light touched her face. Slowly, she felt arms holding her gently. She opened her eyes and saw a face she did not recognize. A human man, dirty and tired, but calm and kind. He looked down at her with concern. "You're awake," he said quietly. Elira tried to move, but pain stopped her. The man, whose name she would soon learn was Ethan, lifted her carefully. She felt safe, though she did not understand why. Ethan looked around. The battlefield was quiet now, but danger still lurked. He knew he should not be here, but he could not leave her behind. "Hold on," he said, scanning the horizon. As he carried her away from the ruins, Elira's mind raced. Humans were known to be strong and brave, but many of her people feared them. She had heard stories of humans who fought fiercely and never gave up, but she never thought she would meet one like this, someone who cared enough to save an enemy. The sky darkened as night fell, but Ethan kept moving. His steps were careful and his eyes alert. He found a small cave hidden by rocks and made a place for Elira to rest. He gently cleaned her wounds with water from his canteen and covered her with a blanket. Elira watched him, surprised by his kindness. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly, her voice weak. Ethan smiled faintly. "Because no one deserves to die alone." For the first time since the battle began, Elira felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this was not the end after all. Outside, the cold wind blew. Inside the cave, two strangers from different worlds shared a moment of peace. The war might continue tomorrow, but for now there was only this quiet shelter and the promise of a new beginning. The morning light seeped gently into the small cave, casting soft shadows on the rocky walls. Elira stirred, blinking away the tiredness in her eyes. Her body still ached, but the pain from yesterday's battle was less sharp now. She looked around and saw Ethan sitting nearby, cleaning a small device that flickered with dim blue light. She tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness stopped her. Ethan noticed and quickly came to her side. "Take it slow," he said kindly. "You're not as weak as before, but you need to rest a bit more." Elira nodded, grateful for the care. Her throat was dry, so she accepted the water he offered. The taste was strange but refreshing. "You're a human," she said after a moment, watching him closely. Ethan smiled, his eyes tired but warm. "Yes, I am." Ethan Ward. "A Lyra," she answered, her voice soft. For a long time they sat, quietly. The sounds of the wild outside were distant. The wind, the occasional call of a bird, the hum of a faraway engine. Inside the cave it was calm. Elira thought about everything she had learned about humans. They were different from her people. Strong, unpredictable, and sometimes harsh. But this human was gentle. He was not like the soldiers she had fought, or, "Did you help me?" she asked again, feeling the question was important. Ethan looked away for a moment. Because no one deserves to be left behind. Not in a place like this. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small, folded map. He showed it to Elira. It was marked with strange symbols and lines. "I was sent to find survivors," Ethan said. "I wasn't supposed to come this far, but when I found you, I couldn't leave." Elira's heart softened. She had never expected kindness from an enemy, but here it was, clear and simple. "We should not be enemies," she whispered. Ethan laughed quietly. "Maybe not. Maybe war is just a mistake that people make." Suddenly, a distant noise broke the moment. Both turned to the cave's entrance. Shadows moved quickly among the rocks outside. "Enemy patrols." "We need to hide," Ethan said, his voice low but firm. Elira tried to stand but wobbled. Ethan caught her. "Let me help you," he said. Together, they moved deeper into the cave, finding a narrow crevice where they could barely be seen. Ethan held his rifle ready, eyes sharp. Minutes passed like hours. The enemy soldiers searched near the cave but did not find them. After the footsteps faded, Ethan relaxed slightly. "That was close," he said. Elira looked at him, respect growing in her eyes. "You saved me again." He shook his head. "We saved each other." The days that followed were slow but hopeful. Ethan and Elira worked together to find food and fresh water. Elira showed Ethan how to recognize safe plants and drink from the hidden springs. Ethan taught Elira simple human phrases and used his device to translate her language into words she could understand better. Each day their trust grew. They shared stories of their lives, their homes, and their dreams. Elira spoke of the Cathari's love for knowledge and honor. Ethan told her about Earth, with its blue oceans and green forests, places he longed to see again. At night, under the stars, they would sit by a small fire. The war seemed far away in those moments. Two strangers from different worlds found a rare peace. One evening, Elira asked softly, "Do you think this war will ever end?" Ethan looked at the flames. "I don't know. But maybe people like us can help make it better." Elira smiled faintly. For the first time she believed it could be true, but danger was never far. The enemy drones were still hunting survivors, and rescue was uncertain. Ethan's radio was broken and their chances of being found were small. Still, they did not give up. Together they planned their next move, to reach a distant base where they hoped friendly forces might be waiting. As they prepared to leave their hiding place, Elira looked at Ethan with new understanding. "Thank you for saving me," she said. Ethan smiled back. "Thank you for trusting me." With that, they stepped out of the cave, ready to face the unknown together. The sun hung low in the orange sky as Elira and Ethan set off from the cave. The rocky terrain of Jirel-on-Fiv stretched before them like a jagged maze. Every step was slow and careful. Elira's wounds still throbbed, and Ethan carried a small medical kit to keep her bandaged. They moved quietly, their eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of danger. The war had left the planet scarred and silent in many places, but the threat of enemy drones and patrols was never far. Elira noticed how Ethan moved with purpose and skill. Even though he was a human, he showed a quiet strength that surprised her. He was not like the soldiers she had feared. He looked out for her, making sure she didn't fall or overexert herself. "You are strong," Ethan said one afternoon as they rested under a rocky overhang. "Even though you are hurt," Elira smiled faintly. "It is my duty to be strong." Ethan looked at her with curiosity. "What made you join the fight?" Alira hesitated. My people expect it. I am part of a long line of warriors. We protect our home, our families. Ethan nodded, understanding more than she expected. I joined to protect my family too, to make sure others don't suffer. Their shared purpose bridged the gap between their worlds. But trust was still fragile. Alira remembered the stories her elders told, how humans were unpredictable and dangerous. She kept her guard up, even as she accepted Ethan's help. One evening, as Ethan cleaned a small cut on her arm, she pulled away slightly. You are kind to me, but I do not forget we are on opposite sides. Ethan nodded slowly. I know, but sometimes kindness is the first step to change. Days passed with careful travel. Food was scarce. Ethan used his survival skills to find edible roots and fresh water. Alira helped him understand the alien plants and terrain. Their conversations grew longer, moving beyond words of survival. They spoke of hopes and fears. Alira told Ethan about the stories of the Cathari's ancient knowledge, their respect for peace despite the war. Ethan shared memories of Earth's quiet places, the forests where his sister used to play, the ocean waves he missed. One night, a soft glow lit the sky, distant explosions from the ongoing war. Alira shivered, feeling the weight of the conflict heavy on her heart. I wish this war would end, she said softly. Ethan reached out, touching her hand gently. Me too. Their fingers brushed, a small but meaningful connection. But danger remained. One afternoon, as they crossed a narrow valley, a sudden sound startled them, a drone patrol scanning the area. Hide, Ethan whispered urgently. They dove behind a large boulder just as the patrol passed, their engines humming nearby. Alira's heart pounded, but Ethan stayed calm, holding her close to keep her quiet. When the patrol moved on, they waited until silence returned before moving again. As they traveled, Ethan's radio crackled with static, an attempt to send a signal for help, but the device was damaged and no answer came. We can't rely on rescue, Ethan said grimly. Alira nodded. Then we must find our own way. Together, they made a plan to reach a rumored safe zone, a distant base where friendly forces might be waiting. It was a long and dangerous journey, but neither hesitated. Along the way, they learned to depend on each other. Ethan's strength balanced Alira's agility. Her knowledge of the land guided their path. They shared stories and laughter to keep their spirits alive. At night, beneath the stars, they talked of what might come after the war. Alira admitted she had never met a human like Ethan before, someone who saw her not as an enemy but as a person. Ethan said, maybe the real war is between fear and understanding. Alira smiled, feeling hope grow inside her. Though they were from different worlds, their bond was becoming something rare and true. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, they believed they could face it together. The storm came without warning. Dark clouds rolled in over HFY, blotting out the orange sky and swallowing the sun. The wind picked up, howling through the rocky valleys like a wild beast. Rain began to fall, sharp and cold, mixing with the dust already coating the land. Alira and Ethan hurried to find shelter. The open terrain offered little protection, and the storm grew stronger with every passing minute. Over there, Ethan shouted, pointing to a broken research outpost nestled between jagged cliffs. They dashed toward it, slipping and sliding over the wet stones. The door was cracked open and inside was dim but dry. Ethan pulled Alira inside, closing the door behind them. The shelter was small, filled with old machines and scattered tools. It smelled of metal and dust, but it was a refuge. They collapsed, beside a cracked table, breathing hard. Close call, Ethan said, glancing at Alira. She nodded, shivering slightly. Thank you. The storm raged outside, thunder shaking the walls. Lightning flashed, illuminating the strange symbols etched on the machines. Alira looked around, her eyes curious despite the danger. This place was a reminder of the world before. War, a place of knowledge and discovery. We can rest here, Ethan said, and wait for the storm to pass. For the first time in days, they were safe. As the rain pounded on the metal roof, they shared what little food they had. Ethan opened, a small pack offering dried fruits and protein bars. Illyra ate slowly, feeling her strength return. With time to talk, they learned more about each other. Illyra told Ethan about her family, the warriors who came before her and the honor she carried as part of their legacy. "I was expected to be strong," she said quietly, "to never show fear." Ethan listened, fascinated. "That sounds hard. Sometimes we are expected to be strong too, but inside, we all feel scared." They talked about their homes, Illyra's blue world of towering forests, and Ethan's green earth, full of oceans and mountains. "I never thought I would meet someone so different and yet feel so close," Illyra admitted. Ethan smiled gently. "Maybe that's what makes us human, to find connection in unexpected places." The storm did not just bring rain, it brought a quiet that allowed them to see beyond the war. In the small shelter, two strangers found a shared humanity. But the night was not without its challenges. Illyra's wound began to ache again, and she winced. Ethan moved to help, his hands steady as he cleaned the injury and changed the bandages. "You are careful," Illyra said, surprised. "I learned a few things," Ethan replied with a soft grin. She looked at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you, Ethan." They sat close, the warmth of the shelter contrasting with the cold outside. The storm's rage softened, and the distant sounds of battle faded. In that quiet moment, something shifted between them. It was more than survival. It was trust, respect, and a fragile hope. As they rested, Illyra reached out, her fingers brushing Ethan's hand. He held it gently. "We will get through this," he promised. Illyra nodded, feeling strength return not just in her body but in her heart. Outside, the storm began to break and the first rays of sunlight pierced the clouds. Together they looked out at the world, scarred by war, but still full of possibility. They did not know what the future held, but they knew they would face it side by side. The days following the storm were filled with cautious movement. The sky cleared, but the heavy silence over Sirelon 5 weighed on Illyra and Ethan's spirits. Each step forward was a mix of hope and fear. They had repaired their small gear and packed what they could carry. Ethan's radio, however, still crackled with static, refusing to send a clear signal. It was the only link they had to their allies, but it seemed broken beyond repair. "We need to find another way," Ethan said, frustration in his voice as he examined the device. Illyra nodded. "My people, the Cathari Alliance, will come for me. They must." Ethan looked at her, then away. "They haven't. Not yet." Illyra's heart sank. She had believed rescue was certain. She had counted on her people's strength and loyalty. But days passed and no friendly ships appeared on the horizon. "Why would they leave you?" she asked softly, the question heavy with doubt. Ethan shrugged, unable to give an answer. The silence between them stretched longer than words. That night, they set up camp near a cluster of alien trees, their leaves whispering softly in the breeze. Illyra sat close to the small fire Ethan built, watching the flames flicker. "I thought my mission would end in glory," she said quietly. "But instead I am alone." Ethan sat beside her. "You are not alone now. You have me." She looked into his eyes, finding comfort there. "You have risked much for me, Ethan." He smiled faintly. "Because I believe in saving people, no matter where they come from." Over. The next days, the truth became clearer. The Alliance had other battles to fight, other priorities. Sirelon Fi was a distant world, and Illyra's disappearance seemed to have been lost in the chaos. They were on their own. Instead of waiting, they decided to move forward. Ethan suggested heading to a distant outpost, rumored to be a refuge for survivors and neutral forces. "It won't be easy," Ethan warned, "but it's our best chance," Illyra agreed. "We have no other choice." Their journey was long and dangerous. The terrain was rough, with deep canyons and sharp cliffs. The enemy drones still patrolled, making every step perilous. At times, they traveled by night to avoid detection. At others, they hid in caves or under thick alien foliage. Despite the hardship, Elira and Ethan found strength in each other. Their conversations became lighter, filled with stories and dreams. Elira told Ethan about her childhood, training in the warrior's way, and the honor she carried for her family. Ethan shared his memories of Earth, simple moments like playing, with his sister watching sunsets and dreaming of peace. They laughed, shared fears, and slowly, a bond grew between them. One evening, as they rested by a small stream, Elira turned to Ethan. "Do you believe peace is possible?" she asked. Ethan looked at the stars reflected in the water. "I do, but it takes people willing to fight for it, just not with weapons." Elira smiled softly. "Maybe that is why we found each other." But even as hope grew, the dangers did not fade. One day, they heard the distant hum of enemy ships. A patrol was close. Ethan moved quickly, leading Elira to a hidden ravine. They watched as drones swept the area, searching for survivors. Elira held her breath, clutching Ethan's hand tightly. When the patrol passed, they continued their journey, hearts pounding through every challenge. They learned to rely on each other's strengths. Elira's agility and knowledge of the planet guided their path. Ethan's courage and determination kept them moving forward. Together, they were more than just survivors. They were partners, united against the odds. Finally, after days of travel, they spotted the faint lights of the outpost ahead. Relief flooded them both. They had made it. As they approached the gates, a sense of cautious hope filled their hearts. The journey was far from over, but for now they had found a safe place. And in that safety, they discovered something even more precious: trust. The outpost was small but alive with activity. Lights flickered inside domed buildings, and the hum of machinery filled the air. Soldiers and scientists from many worlds moved quickly, their faces marked with hope and worry. Ethan and Elira entered cautiously, tired but relieved. Their journey had been long and hard, but at last, they were safe. Elira looked around with wide eyes. This place was different from the battlefields and empty caves. It was a refuge, a place where enemies could become allies, even if just for a moment. A tall woman approached them. Her uniform was marked with a symbol Elira did not recognize, but her voice was warm. "Welcome to Haven Station," she said. "We've been monitoring the area and picked up your signal." Ethan handed over the small, battered radio. "It's the only way we could send a call for help." The woman nodded. "We'll get you both checked and treated. You're safe here." Elira felt a strange mix of relief and uncertainty. She had expected to find her own people waiting for her, but instead she found strangers. Still, their kindness was real. Days passed as doctors tended to her wounds. Ethan helped with repairs and shared information about the war and the fragile peace talks. During this time, Elira and Ethan spent many hours talking. They shared stories about their worlds, their hopes, and the meaning of home. One evening, under the stars visible through the dome's clear ceiling, Ethan turned to Elira. "I want to show you something," he said, pulling out a small tablet. On the screen, images of Earth appeared: blue oceans, green forests, bustling cities. Elira's eyes sparkled with wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "It's my home. Maybe one day you can see it too." Elira reached out, her fingers brushing the screen. For the first time, she dreamed not of war, but of peace. But the outpost held secrets too. Not all there were friends. Some viewed the arrival of a Kethari scout with suspicion. Others wondered what this human was doing so close to enemy lines. One night, Elira overheard a conversation between two officers. They spoke of political tensions and the fragile alliances that could break at any moment. She felt torn. Could she trust this place? Could she trust Ethan? Ethan sensed her worry and took her hand gently. "We're safe here, at least for now," he said. "But the galaxy is bigger than any of us imagine, and peace is never easy." Elira nodded. I want to believe that peace is possible. Their quiet moment was interrupted by an urgent call from the control room. A message had come through the long-range communication array, an official invitation from the Neutral Council, offering asylum and support for refugees from all sides. The news spread quickly. It was a sign of hope for many, a chance to end the war through dialogue. For Elira, it was a chance to start anew. She looked at Ethan, feeling a deep gratitude. He had saved her life, opened her eyes to new possibilities, and stood by her when no one else did. Together they made a decision. They would leave the outpost and travel to the Neutral Council's meeting place to join the effort for peace and to build a future beyond the war. The journey ahead would be difficult, but they were ready. As they prepared to depart, Elira whispered, "Thank you, Ethan, for everything." He smiled, steady and sure. "We're in this together." Outside, the stars shone bright, lighting their path forward. The ship's engines hummed softly as it lifted off from Haven Station, leaving the scarred world of Zeralon 5 behind. Elira stood by the window, watching the planet grow smaller, the orange dust storms fading into the endless blackness of space. Beside her, Ethan's steady presence was a quiet comfort. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to breathe deeply, not in pain, not in fear, but in hope. She turned to Ethan, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "I never thought I would leave Zeralon 5 alive, and now I am here, moving toward something new." Ethan smiled gently. "You earned this chance. You fought hard, survived, and trusted me. That makes all the difference." Elira looked down at her hands, still marked with dirt and scars from the long journey, but inside, something had changed. The weight of war and loss was lighter now, replaced by a spark of something new, a future she could not yet imagine, but wanted to see. The ship was heading toward the Neutral Council's meeting place, a station where leaders from many worlds gathered to discuss peace and cooperation. It was a beacon of hope in a galaxy fractured by conflict. As the days passed, Elira and Ethan spent time learning from the diverse inhabitants aboard the ship. Aliens of many shapes and colors, humans and others, shared stories, music, and laughter. The walls seemed to hold memories of hope. One evening, as the ship floated silently through the stars, Ethan found Elira looking out at the endless sky. "Do you remember when you first woke up on Zeralon 5? He asked. She smiled softly. "I was afraid. I thought it was the end. And now? Now I know it was a beginning." Ethan took her hand, holding it gently. "We faced the darkness together, and now we walk into the light." The bond between them had grown deeper than words. They were no longer just soldier and scout, enemy and survivor. They were friends, allies, maybe even something more. The ship finally arrived at the space station. Its gleaming towers rose against the backdrop of distant stars, a place where hope and caution mixed in equal parts. Elira and Ethan stepped onto the station's halls, greeted by delegates from many worlds. They listened as leaders spoke of ending wars, rebuilding trust, and forging new alliances. For Elira, it was a chance to tell her story, a story not just of war and loss, but of trust, kindness, and unexpected friendship. She spoke of the human who saved her life, who showed her that enemies could become friends, that hope could grow even in the darkest places. Her words echoed in the chamber, stirring something deep in those who listened. Ethan stood quietly beside her, proud and steady. After the meeting, as they walked through the station's gardens, Elira paused. "Do you think the galaxy will change?" she asked. Ethan looked around at the peaceful faces. "I believe it will, because people like us choose to make it better." She smiled, feeling warmth spread through her. "Thank you for being my light when I could not see a way." Ethan squeezed her hand. "And thank you for trusting me." Together, they looked out at the stars, no longer strangers, no longer enemies. Two beings from different worlds walking forward as one. The war was not over, but a new story had begun. A story of hope, friendship, and the strength of the human heart.